Are you deaf or just slow? I said I need it now. People like you shouldn't even be working. The words rang out across the aisle, loud enough to stop carts and cut conversations short. Someone coughed. Someone else turned away. No one stepped in. The woman facing him was around 65. Grey hair pulled back neatly, clean apron, a small name tag pinned over her chest. She had been doing something simple, lining up jars on a shelf, checking labels, keeping the space orderly. She took pride in that. She always had. She turned slowly, more startled by his tone than his question, and explained that the item was sold out, that a new shipment would arrive the next morning. Her voice was calm, polite, the kind of voice that tries not to make trouble. He laughed, sharp, dismissive. Tomorrow? Then he looked her up and down. At your age, you should at least know how to do a basic job. The aisle went still. A couple pretended to study a nearby display. A woman with a stroller backed away, eyes dropped. Silence filled the space where someone should have spoken. Her face flushed. Her hands froze at her sides. It wasn't just the shouting. It was being reduced to nothing in front of strangers. Judged, mocked, powerless. He kept going. Complained about the store, about incompetence, about people who can't keep up. Each word landed harder than the last. Then he walked away, shoes clicking on the polished floor, leaving the mess behind him. She stayed where she was. Shelves perfect, heart heavy, dignity held together by sheer will. That night on the phone, her voice sounded different, quieter, careful. She called it a difficult customer, nothing more. She always minimized things like this. But something had already shifted, because that moment didn't end in the grocery store. And someone hearing that voice knew silence had gone on long enough. Ilara Vance ran her world from the top. Los Angeles stretched out beneath her office windows, a sprawling map of ambition and asphalt, a city that never truly slept, mirroring the ceaseless churn of her own mind. As CEO of Vance Holdings, she commanded a kingdom built on innovative tech solutions and a chain of high-end retail outlets that defined luxury for millions. Her name was synonymous with shrewd deals and relentless expansion. People spoke her name with a mix of respect and quiet fear. Her life was a meticulously managed machine, finely tuned, always moving forward, always pushing for more. Growth charts were her daily prayer, market shares her holy scripture, and the quarterly reports were her gospel. Every decision was weighed against its strategic value, its potential for impact. Personal connections often took a back seat to strategic moves, to the intricate dance of corporate power. This was the way her late father had taught her, the path to undeniable success, the only way to truly build an empire. Yet there was one anchor, one quiet presence that kept a different kind of time, a different rhythm entirely. Her mother, Martha. Martha Vance lived a life far removed from the sterile corporate boardrooms and the volatile oscillations of stock market reports. Despite her daughter's immense wealth, despite the constant offers to live a life of leisure, Martha chose to work. Not out of necessity, not because she needed the money, but out of a deep-seated need for purpose, for routine, for contribution. She was a part-time employee at a local upscale grocery store, the kind of place with gleaming, polished floors, soft jazz playing over the speakers, and perfectly stacked organic produce that looked more like art installations. For Martha, the simple, honest routine of arranging canned goods, carefully checking expiration dates, helping customers find the right imported cheese, and sharing a friendly word with her co-workers was a quiet, profound satisfaction. It was her connection to the real world, a world where dignity came from honest work, from being useful, not from the zeros on a bank statement or the latest quarterly earnings report. It was a grounding force, a silent counterpoint to the relentless ambition that defined Ilara's existence. Ilara had inherited more than just a company from her father. She'd inherited his relentless drive, his belief that the business came first, above all else. She was a CEO forged in his image, sharp, unyielding, always looking for the next acquisition, the next big win, the next market to dominate. Her mother, Martha, however, represented a different kind of strength, a resilience built on quiet principles over loud achievements. Martha had always valued integrity, kindness, and hard work, as their own rewards. She watched Ilara's meteoric climb with immense pride, but also with a gentle, unspoken understanding that there was more to life than the bottom line, more to value than just profit. Their bond was deep, built on Martha's unwavering support through Ilara's demanding career, and Ilara's fierce, though often hidden, loyalty to her mother. Ilara knew her mother was genuinely content in her simple routine, finding joy in small interactions and everyday tasks. A stark contrast to the high-pressure world Ilara inhabited daily, where every interaction could be a negotiation, every conversation a power play. This contrast, though rarely discussed, was a silent testament to their different paths, their different definitions of success. Within Vance Holdings, there were many ambitious people, but few matched the raw, unchecked arrogance of Marcus Thorne. He was the CEO of their most profitable subsidiary, a man who saw success not just as an achievement, but as a personal entitlement, a license to disregard anyone below him. Marcus moved through the polished corporate halls of Vance Holdings like he owned them, treating junior staff as if they were invisible background noise, and even senior executives as mere stepping stones in his relentless climb. His division consistently posted impressive numbers year after year, which in Ilara's father's era would have excused almost any behavior, and it often did. Marcus was known for his short temper, his impatient, demanding nature, and a complete lack of empathy for anyone he deemed beneath him, which was most people. He was a predator in a tailored suit, always circling, always looking for an advantage, always ready to strike, his eyes cold and calculating. His power within the company was immense, protected by the sheer, undeniable profitability of his operation. This made him seem utterly untouchable, impervious to criticism, or so he genuinely believed. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day that usually faded into memory without leaving a trace, blending into the quiet rhythm of Martha's week. She was in the gourmet pasta aisle, her movements precise and practiced, meticulously aligning jars of imported olive oil on a polished wooden shelf. Her hands, slightly gnarled by years of work, moved with a quiet efficiency, each bottle placed just so, labels facing perfectly forward, a small act of order in a sometimes chaotic world. She wore her store uniform, a crisp, clean apron over a simple blue blouse, her name tag discreetly pinned over her heart. The store hummed with the gentle murmur of conversation, the low background music, and the soft clatter of shopping carts. Martha enjoyed these moments of quiet focus, the feeling of contributing, of being useful. She found peace in the predictability of her tasks. Suddenly, a jarring presence broke the calm. A shadow fell over her, not from the overhead lights, but from the imposing figure of Marcus Thorne. He stormed into the aisle, a man she vaguely recognized from seeing his picture in the company newsletter, always looking stern, always looking important. He was on his phone, his voice loud, complaining furiously about a delayed flight, his irritation palpable even before he saw her. He stopped abruptly, his eyes scanning the shelves with an impatient, almost aggressive glare. He pointed a finger, thick and accusing, at a small gap where a specialty pasta was supposed to be. "Where is this? I need this. Now. Don't tell me you're out." Martha, startled by the sudden intrusion, calmly explained, her voice steady despite the abruptness of his tone. "Sir, I'm sorry. We just sold the last one. More will be delivered tomorrow morning, with our regular shipment." Marcus lowered his phone slowly, his face already contorted into a mask of pure annoyance, a flicker of outrage in his eyes. "Tomorrow? Are you serious? You think I have tomorrow to wait for a box of pasta?" His voice, already sharp, began to climb, drawing unwanted attention. "This is absolutely ridiculous. You people are always so slow. Can't you keep anything stocked properly? It's not rocket science." His gaze swept over her, taking in her uniform, her quiet demeanor, her silver hair. "And frankly, at your age, I'd expect you to be more on top of things, not less. Do you even know what you're doing here?" He gestured dismissively, a wave of his hand implying she was irrelevant. Other shoppers in the aisle paused, their carts frozen mid-push, their conversations dying. Their eyes, though quickly averted, spoke of discomfort, of witnessing something they shouldn't. A young couple exchanged a quick, embarrassed glance before pretending to be deeply interested in a display of artisanal jams. A woman pushing a stroller quickly maneuvered her cart down another aisle, trying to escape the scene. Martha felt a deep flush rise to her cheeks, a heat that spread through her chest. Her hands, which had been so busy, now hung still at her sides. She was composed on the outside, her expression unreadable, but a deep burning humiliation spread through her, sharp and undeniable. The words cut deeper than the sheer volume of his voice. Her age, her competence, her very worth, questioned and mocked in public, for something as trivial as a missing box of pasta. Marcus continued his tirade, his voice echoing in the suddenly quiet store. Honestly, what's the point of these places if you can't even get what you need when you need it? Some people should just stay home if they can't handle a simple job. He scoffed, a sneer twisting his lips, finally turning on his heel and marching away, his expensive shoes clicking sharply on the polished floor. He left Martha standing there, surrounded by perfectly aligned olive oil jars, the silence in his wake far louder, far more deafening than his shouted insults. Her quiet dignity was a shield, held firmly in place, but the sting had pierced deep. It was a private wound, one that settled heavy in her chest, hidden from the world for now. The shame, a quiet, bitter taste, would linger long after the sound of his footsteps faded. Martha, usually so cheerful, felt a cloud settle over her, a weight that would soon become too heavy to entirely conceal. The following evening, when Ilara called her mother, Martha's usual cheerful greeting was missing. Her voice was just a little too quiet, a little too even. Ilara, honed by years of reading inflection in high-stakes negotiations, immediately picked up on the subtle shift. "Mum, is everything all right? You sound a little tired." Martha sighed, a soft sound that Ilara barely caught. "Oh, it's nothing, dear. Just a long day at the store, you know how it is. A few difficult customers." Martha always downplayed things. She had a way of shielding Ilara from any negativity, a habit formed during Ilara's demanding climb to the top. Ilara pressed gently. "More than usual? You never complain about difficult customers." There was a pause, a moment of hesitation. Martha finally offered, her voice still carefully neutral. "There was a man today, very rude. Publicly, he just spoke very harshly to me about a misplaced item." She didn't offer his name, she didn't describe the full scene, the stares, the insults about her age. Martha didn't want to cause trouble. She knew Ilara carried enough on her shoulders. She wanted to brush it off, to make it disappear, to bury the sting and move on. She was good at that, burying things. Ilara felt a prickle of unease. Her mother, dignified and principled, was not one to be easily ruffled. For Martha to even mention it meant it had to be bad. "Publicly?" Ilara asked, her tone sharpening, a cold edge entering her voice. "What did he say?" Martha quickly changed the subject, forcing a lightness she didn't feel. "It's fine, Ilara. Really. Just a momentary unpleasantness. Tell me about your day. Big meeting tomorrow, isn't it?" Ilara let it go for the moment, but her mind was already working. Her mother's forced cheerfulness, the swift change of topic, the vague description of a man. It all pointed to something deeper than just a simple rude customer. Martha rarely spoke of herself, always deflecting attention away from any discomfort. Ilara hung up the phone, feeling a profound unease settle in her gut. She knew her mother, knew her silent strength, and knew that for her to be subdued like this, the incident must have cut deep. It wasn't about the rudeness itself. It was about the public humiliation, the disrespect. Ilara found herself pacing her penthouse apartment, the city lights below offering little comfort. Her thoughts kept returning to her mother's quiet voice, the unspoken pain behind it. This was not a business problem to be solved with spreadsheets and negotiations. This was personal. This was family. The next morning, Ilara called Sarah, her executive assistant. Sarah was more than an assistant. She was Ilara's right hand, her confidant, a sharp, discreet woman who understood the unspoken language of the corporate world. "Sarah, I need you to do something for me," Ilara said, her voice low and serious. "It's sensitive. My mother works at the fresh and local grocery store on Wilshire. I need you to find out if anything unusual happened there yesterday afternoon. Specifically, an incident involving her, a rude customer perhaps. Be discreet. Don't mention my name or Vance Holdings. Just dig. Sarah, sensing the urgency in Ilara's tone, simply said, "Consider it done, Ilara." Sarah started her investigation quietly. She didn't call the store directly. That would raise too many flags. Instead, she began with subtle inquiries, checking local forums, anonymous community posts, even sending out a feeler to a private network of service industry employees she knew. The first few leads were dead ends. People at the store were tight-lipped or claimed not to have seen anything. The store manager, when Sarah finally managed a neutral call, was polite but vague, citing customer privacy and a clean incident report. But Sarah was tenacious. She knew where to look, what questions to ask without asking them directly. She visited the store herself, posing as a regular shopper, observing the staff, the atmosphere. She noticed the way some employees avoided eye contact, the nervous glances exchanged when she subtly brought up the previous day's afternoon shift. There was an unspoken tension, a quiet fear that hung in the air, a familiar corporate chill that had somehow seeped into a neighborhood grocery store. It felt like people were afraid to speak, not just about the incident, but about something bigger. Sarah's instincts, finely tuned by years of dealing with corporate power dynamics, told her this wasn't just about a single rude customer. This was about a pattern, a systemic problem. She finally managed to corner a junior employee outside the store during their break, away from prying ears. The young man, initially hesitant, his eyes darting nervously, eventually started talking after Sarah assured him of complete anonymity and safety. His voice was low, almost a whisper, describing the scene with painful clarity. "It was awful, Mum," he recounted, his gaze fixed on his shoes. "This guy just blew up, yelled at Mrs. Vance, called her old, said she wasn't doing her job right. Everyone just stood there. Nobody said anything." He described Marcus's face, his expensive suit, his cruel words. "It wasn't the first time either," the young man added, his voice barely audible. "He comes in sometimes, always acts like he owns the place, yells at staff. Everyone knows who he is. We just try to stay out of his way." Sarah felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. "Who is he?" she asked, keeping her voice even. The employee shrugged. "Just some rich, powerful guy. Folks say he runs one of those big tech companies, always acts like he can do whatever he wants." He mentioned the name of the company, and Sarah immediately recognized it, a major subsidiary of Vance Holdings, Marcus Thorne. The pieces clicked into place with a chilling precision. Sarah felt a jolt of shock, then a wave of cold fury. She knew Marcus Thorne. Everyone at Vance Holdings knew Marcus Thorne. He was the golden boy, the high-performing, high-profit CEO whose numbers spoke louder than any complaints. His reputation for arrogance was legendary within the corporate campus, but it was always dismissed as quirky, intense, or the price of genius. His outbursts were typically contained within the corporate walls, or so everyone believed. Now here he was, publicly demeaning Ilara Vance's own mother, a kind, gentle woman who found joy in stocking shelves. The thought of Martha, usually so composed, enduring such a tirade, sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. It wasn't just a rude customer, it was Marcus Thorne, and it was systemic. Sarah spent the rest of the day digging deeper, pulling strings, making more discreet calls. Navigating the hidden currents of corporate gossip and whispered warnings, she discovered that this was indeed a pattern, not just at the grocery store, but with vendors, service staff, even lower-level employees within his own subsidiary. Stories of similar incidents, brushed under the rug, quieted with severance packages, or simply ignored due to his untouchable status, began to surface. Each new detail painted a clearer, uglier picture of a man who believed his success granted him absolute immunity from common decency. That evening, Sarah sat across from Ilara in her dimly lit office, the city sparkling outside like scattered diamonds. Sarah presented her findings, a concise, devastating report. She laid out the timeline, the eyewitness accounts, the confirmed identity of Marcus Thorne, and the pattern of his abusive behavior. Ilara listened, her face expressionless, her eyes fixed on Sarah, absorbing every word. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with unspoken implications. The meticulously managed empire she had built, the one that prioritized strategic growth and stock value, suddenly felt fragile, tainted. The man who had publicly humiliated her mother was not just an unknown, rude customer. He was a key figure in her own company, a man whose profits she had actively protected and celebrated. Ilara found herself at a crossroads, one she had never anticipated. Protect the company image, the stock value, the carefully constructed facade of corporate invincibility, or confront the systemic abuse of power that had now reached into her most personal, most cherished connection. The choice, once seen through the lens of pure corporate strategy, now seemed stark, undeniable. The image of her mother's quiet dignity, bruised and publicly shamed, burned in Ilara's mind. A fierce protective loyalty she had long buried beneath layers of corporate ambition surged to the surface. It was a loyalty far stronger than any market share, any quarterly profit. A line had been crossed. Ilara looked at Sarah, her eyes cold and resolute. "Thank you, Sarah," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper, but laced with an unshakable resolve. "Now, we make him pay." The decision was made. There would be no turning back. The moment Ilara uttered, "Now we make him pay," the nature of her world shifted. It was no longer about maximizing profits. It was about justice. But justice, especially in the corporate world, was a complex, treacherous path. The first obstacle wasn't Marcus Thorne himself, but her own legal team. Led by David Chen, a man whose loyalty lay with the company's bottom line, they advised caution, subtlety, and discretion. "Ilara," David began, his voice smooth and measured during their first strategy meeting, "Marcus Thorne brings in 30% of our annual revenue. His subsidiary is a powerhouse. Any public action against him, any scandal could send our stock plummeting. It could trigger a full-blown crisis, shareholder unrest, investigations. Are we certain this is the best course of action? We could issue a private warning, perhaps a formal reprimand, a quieter approach." Ilara listened, her face unmoving. She knew David was right. From a purely business perspective, the numbers didn't lie. Marcus was a golden goose, and she was talking about wringing its neck. Other board members echoed David's concerns. They spoke in hushed tones of reputational damage, market instability, and investor confidence. They suggested moving Marcus to a less visible role, quietly reducing his power, or even a generous severance package with a strict non-disclosure agreement, anything to avoid a public spectacle. The unspoken message was clear: profits trumped dignity. Ilara understood their fear. She had once shared it. But now, looking at the data Sarah had compiled, a chilling picture of repeated abuse, she knew she couldn't back down. The fear in the eyes of the grocery store employee, the quiet humiliation in her mother's voice, these were the real costs, not just numbers on a balance sheet. The pushback from her own team was fierce. They pointed to the risks, the unknowns, the potential for irreversible damage to Vance Holdings. She was being asked to choose between her family and her empire, between a personal wrong and the collective good of her shareholders. But for Ilara, the choice was already made. Ilara knew that a quiet reprimand wouldn't cut it. Marcus Thorne, with his inflated ego and sense of entitlement, would merely see it as a slap on the wrist, a minor inconvenience that only confirmed his untouchable status. He would learn nothing, and his behavior would continue, perhaps even escalate. She had to dismantle his power, not just temporarily inconvenience him. She had to make an example, not just for her mother, but for every quiet employee he had ever belittled, every person he had stepped on in his ruthless climb. The internal conflict was a battle within herself. The CEO, trained to protect the company at all costs, fought against the daughter, driven by a primal need to protect her mother's honor. For years she had compartmentalized, separating her personal life from her corporate identity. Now those walls were crumbling. The image of Martha, her kind, strong mother, enduring such public disrespect, gnawed at her. She felt a cold, hard anger, a fury she rarely allowed herself to show. She thought of her father, a man who had built his empire with a firm hand, but also with a code of honor, however strict. He would never have tolerated this kind of casual cruelty. He valued loyalty, even if it was a loyalty to the company above all else. But this was different. This was fundamental disrespect, not just a business error. Ilara began to work in secret, her trusted assistant Sarah becoming her shadow. They meticulously gathered every piece of evidence, not just the incident at the grocery store, but the pattern. Sarah, with her network and her sharp investigative skills, uncovered more stories. A delivery driver Marcus had publicly berated for being 5 minutes late, leading to the driver's suspension. A young intern he had reduced to tears for a minor typo in a presentation. A former executive assistant who had quietly resigned after months of verbal abuse. These were not just isolated incidents. They were a systemic pattern, a calculated reign of intimidation. Sarah found a particularly damning piece of evidence, an internal company memo, leaked by a disgruntled former HR employee, detailing several formal complaints against Marcus that had been quietly suppressed or dismissed, citing his critical importance to the company's financial performance. This was the smoking gun. It showed that the company, under previous leadership, had actively enabled his behavior, prioritizing profit over employee well-being. This was a direct challenge to the corporate values Ilara now sought to uphold. The true turning point came not from a dramatic confrontation, but from the quiet courage of others. Sarah tracked down the former executive assistant, a woman named Clara, who had left Marcus's subsidiary 2 years prior, shattered by his constant abuse. Clara was hesitant, still visibly shaken by the memories. She feared retaliation, blacklisting in the industry. But Sarah, with a quiet, persistent empathy, explained Ilara's mission, the gravity of the situation, the personal stake involved. She emphasized that Ilara, the CEO, was personally committed to ensuring justice and protection. Clara, seeing a genuine opportunity for change, a chance to finally speak her truth without fear, agreed to provide a written testimony. Her account was detailed, factual, outlining years of relentless verbal abuse, public humiliation, and constant threats to her career. She had kept meticulous records, dates, times, specific incidents, even copies of threatening emails. Her testimony provided concrete proof of Marcus's long-standing pattern of intimidation, not just at the grocery store, but within the very walls of Vance Holdings. This was a critical blow. It wasn't just a single incident anymore. It was a deeply ingrained pattern of abuse, a toxic culture fostered by one man. Ilara now had not only the grocery store incident, corroborated by multiple witnesses, but also Clara's detailed, unimpeachable testimony, supported by documentation. This evidence, combined with the leaked HR memo, formed an undeniable case. It exposed not only Marcus's actions, but also the systemic failure of the company to address them. The conflict was no longer just between Ilara and Marcus. It was between the old way of doing business, where profit excused all, and a new vision of leadership, where dignity and respect mattered. Ilara scheduled an unscheduled corporate review meeting. She knew this would be her battleground. She knew the board, especially David Chen, would fight her every step of the way, trying to preserve the status quo, the golden boy, the untouchable revenue stream. But now, she had the proof. She had the facts. She had the stories. She was ready. The fight for her mother's dignity and for the integrity of her company had just begun. The first casualty was about to be Marcus Thorne's reputation, a public downfall that would begin in the quiet, sterile boardroom. The boardroom of Vance Holdings felt colder than usual that morning. The large, polished mahogany table reflected the grim faces of the board members and senior executives. Marcus Thorne sat at one end, a slight smirk playing on his lips, confident, dismissive, completely unaware of the precise storm Ilara Vance was about to unleash. He had been called in for a routine performance review, a common corporate formality, he thought. Ilara, at the head of the table, began her presentation. Her voice was calm, clear, devoid of emotion, like a sharp blade. She didn't start with Martha. She started with the numbers, the cold hard facts of employee turnover in Marcus's subsidiary, the quiet complaints funneled through informal channels, the subtle dip in morale. David Chen, the company's legal counsel, shifted uneasily in his seat, still hoping for a softer landing, a way to protect the company's financial powerhouse. Ilara then projected the anonymized results of internal surveys, showing a pattern of fear and stress among Marcus's team. She presented the leaked HR memo next, a document that had been buried deep for years. It detailed multiple formal complaints against Marcus, complaints that had been systematically dismissed, often with the notation that his critical importance to company earnings outweighed any concerns about his behavior. A murmur ran through the room. This was not just about Marcus, it was about how the company had enabled him. The initial tension in the room thickened, transforming into a palpable discomfort. Marcus, finally sensing the shift, leaned forward, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. "Ilara, with all due respect, this is an overblown internal HR matter. We're talking about high performers demanding roles. Not everyone can handle the pressure." His voice, though slightly less confident, still carried its usual arrogance. Ilara met his gaze, her eyes like ice. "Pressure is one thing, Marcus. Abuse is another." She moved to the next slide, a concise summary of the incident at the grocery store. She detailed the date, the time, the public nature of the verbal attack, and the specific demeaning words used. She didn't mention her mother's name. Marcus scoffed, a dismissive wave of his hand. "Oh, that? A minor misunderstanding with a slow employee. I was in a hurry. It happens. People get sensitive." He tried to brush it off, to minimize, to make it seem like an inconvenience, not a transgression. But Ilara was ready. "Is it a misunderstanding when multiple eyewitnesses confirm your exact words, Marcus? When they describe the fear in the eyes of other staff? When they confirm you use derogatory language about someone's age and competence in a public place?" She then presented the detailed statements from the grocery store employees, collected by Sarah. Their words, read aloud by Ilara, painted a stark, consistent picture of his abusive outburst. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. This was not just hearsay. Then came the true crushing blow. Ilara projected Clara's detailed testimony, the former executive assistant. Her account was chilling, outlining years of relentless verbal abuse, constant threats, and a climate of fear. It included copies of Marcus's emails, filled with aggressive, demeaning language, dates and times of specific incidents. Clara's quiet, steady voice, recorded by Sarah, played through the room's speakers, detailing the emotional toll, the constant dread. Marcus's face drained of color. He tried to interrupt, to deny, to accuse Clara of being a disgruntled employee, but Ilara cut him off, her voice sharp. "The evidence is irrefutable, Marcus. This is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern of abuse that we as a company have failed to address for too long." The weight of the evidence was undeniable. David Chen, who had initially championed caution, now sat slumped, his face grim. The board members, many of whom had once shielded Marcus due to his profits, now saw the true cost. His reputation, once built on financial success, crumbled under the weight of his own toxic behavior. Ilara's final statement was delivered with cold precision. "Marcus Thorne has violated the core values of Vance Holdings. His actions demonstrate a pattern of systemic disrespect and intimidation. This behavior is not only unacceptable, it is a liability. It erodes trust, damages morale, and ultimately will damage our brand. As CEO, I cannot allow this to continue." The board, after a tense, brief deliberation, voted unanimously. Marcus Thorne was immediately stripped of his position, his employment terminated without severance. His access to company systems was cut, even as he watched. The news of his sudden, definitive downfall spread like wildfire through the corporate world, a public end to his once untouchable career. His name, once synonymous with ruthless success, was now tainted, a cautionary tale. In the days that followed, Ilara moved swiftly to implement new policies. She established a robust, anonymous reporting system for workplace abuse, with clear, severe consequences for any executive found in violation. She mandated company-wide training on respect and dignity in the workplace, emphasizing that no one, regardless of their position or profit contribution, was above basic human decency. The stock price dipped slightly at first, just as David Chen had feared, but Ilara held firm. She communicated openly with shareholders, stating that a company built on integrity would ultimately be stronger and more sustainable. Slowly, the market responded, recognizing the long-term value of a healthy corporate culture. Ilara paid a personal and professional cost for her choices, enduring criticism from some who believed she had prioritized emotion over economics. But for her, the cost was worth it. She visited Martha at her home a few days later. Martha, having heard the news, looked at her daughter with eyes full of understanding and a quiet pride. "You didn't have to do all that for me, Ilara," Martha said softly, her voice steady. Ilara took her mother's hand. "Yes, Mom, I did. Not just for you, but for what's right." Their bond, always strong, deepened, forged anew in the fires of shared experience and Ilara's unwavering protection. Martha's quiet dignity had been restored, not just by Ilara's actions, but by the public validation that her worth was immeasurable, far beyond any price. Ilara, looking at her mother, understood then that true leadership extended far beyond the balance sheet. It was about creating a world where dignity was non-negotiable, where respect was paramount, and where the most valuable asset any company possessed was the humanity of its people. She knew this was not a battle won, but a vigilance required, a constant commitment to uphold these values in a world often blinded by power and profit. When silence protects abuse, telling that story already is justice.